Hey guys, welcome back. Randy here, the Monetize Your Life guy. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to look at the Monetize Your Life system, but we're going to be looking at it through a pricing structure, because oftentimes what happens is when people are using the system, then they want to ask, okay, I've built this product, I built this service, I use my life just like you taught me, but I don't know how to price it. So we're going to look at some things that considered one of the top things to do when you are pricing your stuff. So let's go ahead and go over to that. One of the things, pricing basics. Okay, so you of course have to go into what does stuff cost you. So as we think about the material costs themselves, the labor costs. Now here's a funny thing. Oftentimes people leave out paying themselves. Well, guess what? Your labor. Right? But you're going to be looking at it a little different way, because in certain situations, you're going to have people helping you. That's labor. And as you do more, labor goes up. And then, of course, if you're paying yourself a salary, that's going to be a different kind of cost. It's going to be a fixed cost. So we want to look at the overhead costs. We want to look at calculating the overall total cost for our businesses, and then cost of services. Oftentimes, we don't think about the apps that we have. Right? I got a ton of apps, and sometimes we forget to put those in, but that is a part of the cost. Overhead percentages. What is my overhead as a percentage of blank, blank, and blank? All right, those are some things we're going to consider. And then we want to determine what our rate is. What do we want to pay ourselves? Now, I try to take a very simple approach to this. And this helps me whether somebody calls me up and says, hey, I'd like you to help me move a couch. And I go, well, this is what I would charge you. Right? Because once you kind of determine what your rate is, and it's going to be based on some of these other factors. So think about this. If you're monetizing your life and you're thinking, okay, what is the cost of me doing anything? It is going to be a part of whether or not you would ask that of a job, ask that of a person that's asking you to do some consulting. All right. So some of the factors that we need to really consider as we do these costs and determining our pricing is we got to know who our customer is. Will our customer allow us to charge them X? So you may say, hey, I'd like to charge $150 an hour. Okay, no problem. But your customers are only paying $75 out there. The competition is whooping up on you simply because they're half your cost. So you got to know your customers. Knowing your competition. Let's look at this one right here. Knowing your competition. Tell me why that's important. Knowing your competition is really, your competition is not just sitting there waiting for you to enter the market that they've had nomination over. Excuse me. They're waiting for you. They're not waiting for you to do any of that stuff. They're not sitting around waiting for their market share to be eroded. You got to know your competition. You got to know what they might do in response to you. All right. So as you go on and you start determining your costs, determining your pricing strategy, we're going to break some of these things out. We're going to go right there to page 7. You want to determine a margin. Here's a really funny thing. When people oftentimes are doing their pricing structure and they're kind of determining their costs, getting to break even, they don't put in a margin. Well, the business has to run, but you also want to put in a margin, because get this, your money or all the time or whatever you're putting into your business could be going somewhere else. Where is that somewhere else? What are the percentages that somewhere else will pay you? So we got to put that in. We're going to be looking at markup. We're going to be looking at, of course, margin. We're going to be looking at keystone pricing, whether you are 100% markup. Now, what business has multiple percentages of markup? Think about ties. I remember when I was in the suit selling business, right, long time ago, and I would sell suits, but what was most lucrative were the ties. Why? Because ties cost like $2 to $3 to make, and you are selling those darn things even on sale $6, $7, $8, $18. It was awesome markup. Jewelry, that's another one. Markups out of this world, right? So we want to look at that. Then we, of course, are going to be doing the value-based pricing. We got to start looking at our item, what we're offering, and ask ourselves a question. What is the value out in the marketplace? In other words, all the stuff that you know and you are now exchanging that in the marketplace. What is the value of that, and how can you price it based on that? All right, and then of course, suggested manufacturer suggested retail price. Now, that's what they suggest. You've seen those things on tags before, right? They say, this is what we're giving it to you for. But here's what we could be getting. This is what the manufacturer suggests we do. So see, we're giving you a great deal. Now, you can use some of these tactics and strategies in your pricing as well. What I like to do, for example, is I like to say, was $47, now $27. This is what it was. The same as saying manufacturer suggested retail price. Okay, now we're going to be taking a look at our services. We're going to make sure you calculate your costs, study the market, knowing your customers, of course, consider time invested. Time invested. Boy, I could go into it on that. And form a profit margin, charge an hour or project rate, and hourly. Here's a really funny thing. Think about when you've had to take your car in for service if you drive a car. And they say, okay, they look in this little book. Oh, yeah, it says it should take this long to fix those brakes. And it says, well, we charge $74, $84, $94 an hour. Now, it's that difference. It's that margin that's going to be where they make their money. Now, of course, you're still working on the car as a technician, let's say, and it's past that hour, you're losing the company money because they had that built-in margin. You get what I'm saying here? So, all right, we're going to be doing that. We got to determine if it's going to be in an hourly. You still know what it takes you to put into a project. What I typically do is, in certain cases, when I'm working with a client, I will, if it's something I've never done before, then I kind of look at it and go, okay, I've never done this before. What is it going to take for me to put my time and energy into this particular project, right? Now, I say, all right, can I get it done faster somewhere else? Can I get it done better somewhere else? Right now, the customer has a relationship with me. They don't know that maybe, I'm leveraging my talent and looking within my company, looking within my team members and seeing who can do this at a lower price point. Okay, that is another opportunity for you to say, this is what I could charge, but this is what I am going to charge. They get a savings, and then they get their item. So we're going to be looking at monitoring pricing. So let's get into it. Step one. One of the first things we want to do is want to figure out all our costs, right? Now, rent. What does your rent cost you? Now, before we get into the weeds here about talking about whether or not this is, ongoing costs or these are overhead costs, these are just some considerations, because think about this. You're monetizing your life. So you're now taking a part of something that you probably do already. And then you're saying, well, how can I leverage what I already do, something I may love to do, a passion or whatever it is, something that I notice in life, something that's going on, and how can I now create the product from it? But then how can I price it? Well, we got to consider these things, don't we? Rent. What is it going to cost you to be where you are? Now, I'm going to tell you, I love the home office approach. The reason why I love the home office approach is because guess what? Your overhead is different. Now, don't get me wrong. That's not to say that you don't get some distractions galore, but that's okay. I tell you, when I work out of my home office versus working in with my wife or at her office, I get everything done, right? The clothes get done. I can fold them up. I use the time where I need to take a break. As those times I go across the street, play some basketball. Take a walk. You see what I mean? Now with the home office, you are allowed that as an opportunity, right? So rent is going to be a consideration. That's going to be your cost. You need to find out what that is. There are some tax advantages to working out of your home. Now, as you notice, I got a board behind me. I got stuff on the wall. I've basically utilized, the four corners of the wall to hold things. I've got note cards that are kind of reminders of things. I've got, whiteboards. I'm looking at a whiteboard right now. There's two behind me, stuff like that. There's stuff going on to the left of me. So because you are now working out of your home, your rent is reduced. Could that also be something that you can now go into the marketplace and offer lower cost products because your costs are lower? Absolutely it is. All right, materials. Doesn't matter if you have lettuce, nails, glue, paint, or others, right? This is going to vary depending on the product service, but because of your materials, you got to now create this. Now we've got some spreadsheets, or I'm going to introduce you to some spreadsheets that really allow you to do this easily. When we typically present this to folks, get all, weird and stuff, and they kind of go, wait a minute, I don't know, I don't know all the stuff that I should do, and do I got to keep it up in my head? Nah, we don't do that. We don't have to. You don't have to keep it in your head anymore. That stuff is played out. We have the spreadsheets that are going to do the heavy lifting for us, and you don't even have to build the spreadsheets. We're going to go over and get some Fiverr folks. They're going to build a spreadsheet for us. All right, so let's go ahead and go into it. Utilities. These are some of the other things that we want to consider as a part of our cost. Oftentimes, people aren't considering all these things, but get this. It is a cost that's coming out. Now, I got this little saying, I will not invite a cost unless it's bringing his friend revenue, right? Assume this was a party. Cost, you can't come in. Where's your friend revenue? Nope, you didn't bring revenue. Got to go. Right? So we're always trying to match up a cost with the revenue from it. I also have another thing that I do is if it's an app, for example, if I am using an app and it's costing me $97 a month, $45 a month, then I also want to have the opportunity to present that app. In other words, as an affiliate, because I want to not only cover my costs, but if I'm using it and I like it, why wouldn't I? I have a responsibility to mention what's working for me, what digital tools that I'm using to make money to my potential clients. So that is another opportunity that you are saying, hey, cost, bring your friend revenue. That makes sense? All right, so let's get into this one. Insurance, got to have it, right? Got to have it. Something goes wrong, you want to make sure that it is leveraged. But get this, the insurance that you're paying because you're going to be running your business is an expensive event, all right? Business income insurance. Oh man, I can remember I had heard about, now I hadn't realized you can even do this, but there was a really big church. You probably may have heard this before, but it was this huge church. We're talking about, I don't know, 40 some thousand members. All right. Well, anyway, they got robbed. I don't know if this robbery was gunpoint, if it was an internal thing, but they got robbed. But get this, they ended up having, I don't know if they call it tithe insurance or, collection insurance or whatever, but they had business income insurance. Here's another one, data breach. What if your product or service or your customer base or whatever it is was hacked? You were hacked and they were affected. Do you have insurance against that? Because that can, of course, cost you your business. All right. Little things that we have to consider. Now, don't get too overwhelmed with this especially if you're just starting out. Don't think about it from the standpoint of, gee, I gotta think about all this stuff. I'm just starting out. I gotta go get customers. Yeah. That's what you want to really do. But when you start getting in and running this business, these are some of the extra costs that eat into your profitability. Okay, here we go. Job project staffing. Who am I getting? Who's coming in? What are their costs? What are their expenses? Licensing, permits, travel expenses, tooling, rental fees. Now, what I did was, we went and when I was talking with John and we were putting this together, these are just some of the things that we just threw in and it may not be for your business, but because we know that there are a lot of companies out there that are starting up and a lot of companies that are running and they don't know why they're not making any money. Well, these are some of the extra expenses. We have to look at our expenses and our cost in such a way that, they're just trying to steal our business from us. And they are, because they're stealing our money. Right now, costs can also be adjusted and adapted depending on what you're doing. All right. But anyway, so we want to get into this. Marketing expenses. Here's something that people don't, when times get bad, this seems to be the first thing to go. And to me, that makes so little sense. We understand that, there's not a lot of money coming in, but it is the marketing that keeps you top of mind in your customers' mind. It keeps you doing things maybe opposite of what your competition's doing. They're going down and you're going up. So think about that for a minute. It's like marketing, because they get low. Sometimes if you're doing Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, LinkedIn ads, Pinterest ads, they usually go down, right? Think about gas. Nobody's buying gas. Gas goes down. That's the time to buy, right? All right, telecommunication expenses, membership associations, all the little things, fuel tax, if you got fuel tax stuff, if your business is like that. We just lumped in as much as we possibly could so that you could see there's a lot of potential costs that we have to think about, right? 1099 expenses. Who am I hiring? I hire a lot of contractors because, again, working out of your home, you can do that. You can now say, hey, wait a minute, I don't have to have a whole building full of people. I can be a one person bang and create a massive, a massive amount of income for myself. Why? Because my expenses are so darn low. Oh, man. Anyway, so step 2, time involved. Here's an example. We've got to consider not only your employee's time, but we want to consider your time. You as the employee of the business costs what to have you. Because you could be doing something else, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if it's flipping burgers or if it's selling suits or it's working at a convenience store, it's working in a factory, driving a pizza car. Doesn't matter. You could be doing that. But you've chosen to be in your business working the business. So now, what does that cost you? I like to tell my businesses, when I start a business, I say, okay, business, what are you going to do to afford me? And now that becomes a part of the inputs, the part of the things that I put down that now that business has to match or it doesn't become a go, right? I say, hey, I'm going to give you X amount of time. Here's what my time is worth. And once we get to doing like break even stuff, you will see as well how much your time is worth. You guys with me? All right, so let's just consider these things. Put all this in. And when we get to the spreadsheet part of it, we're going to be able to plug these in saying, hey, I want to pay myself $40 an hour. I was making 20, but now I got to pay my own insurance, blah, 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 blah. This is what you want to do. All right. I got an employee. I'm going to be ramping up. I need to hire somebody. Plug that right in. This is one of the things that's missing a lot of times when people are doing their break-even analysis, when they're determining their cost, their price, and determining where their break-even is, right? They don't put in a lot for having to hire somebody. I suggest doing that right away. And this is why. When you do it right away, this is what you accomplish. You immediately get yourself, in terms of cost, a helper. Because guess what? It's going to be you. And I tell people, you don't have enough hats for all those gigs, right? You don't know, all the hats that you have to wear. You don't have enough enough heads for all those hats, right? You now have to maybe consider getting somebody else in so that you can get the work done, so that you can fulfill your orders, whatever it is. Now, this is why I like to hire contractors right away. The first thing that I do is I look and say, okay, if I got, a beautiful landing page done and I'm driving traffic to that landing page and all of a sudden it went boom, or I wrote an article and in the article I had a link or something like that, and now they're going to my landing page and they're trying to buy my order. Do I got to fulfill all those darn orders? Shoot, that's going to kill you. It's going to, you'll have those 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning type moments. And who wants that? So if you are baking right in to your cost structure, the fact that you're going to be using some contractors, all the better. Trust when I say this, all the better. All right, so you go ahead and put this in, time involved, your time, and potential employees. Let's go to step 3. Here's one of the good ways to determine pricing. Right now, because in the Monetize Your Life system, we always talk about, okay, we come up with a product based on the things that we love to do, things that we're already doing, and or what we're noticing out there in the marketplace, or stuff that frustrates you. I love creating a product around something that frustrates me. I'll give you an example, and this is a little, don't judge me here, but here's what happened. I was getting ready to go on camera, right? And I could not get the shine off my forehead. It was crazy. It was just shiny. I went and, put water on it, the ice, the whole thing, and it just was shiny, right? And my body must have been producing a lot of oils or something. Well, that shine shows up when you have lights coming down and they kind of, get a little hot and then you get a little. So I thought, man, wouldn't it be great if we had some kind of man makeup, whatever, right? And I thought, well, men don't have a lot of makeup. My wife said, well, why don't you use this? Well, her stuff didn't quite match my skin tone, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if, now that was a frustration. Now, keep in mind, this is your life. This is why I call it the monetize your life system. Is that now we know that when we go into a situation where we have something that is frustrating us, then we apply the system. We begin asking questions of it. We say, okay, what's frustrating me? What's going on? Is this a problem? Is this a problem that maybe other people have that would pay us for this? How do we know? We start getting into what we do in the system. So I says, it would be great if we had some kind of makeup for men. So I started with that big idea, that big premise. And I started going, okay, how much time is it going to take me to start rolling this out? But at least I took the idea and I forwarded it. Ask a couple people, hey, wouldn't it be great? Because a lot of people are on Zoom and a lot of, and men are just looking crazy out there. They're all shiny and stuff like that. And what do we have for us that we can use that helps us not look like that? And also not look like our wives, right? So I thought, maybe that's something that I can explore, and literally just start jotting down some of the ideas and then begin asking, what do I do? So one of the first things that my wife suggested, she said, hey, why don't you go over to some of the bigs out there and see what they're doing right now? And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. What do they got for men? Go in and just ask somebody. Don't call the head office because somebody's sitting around going, hey, that's an idea, right? And they begin and they start your stuff. And you'll be, somebody took my idea. Well, they probably had the idea, they just didn't forward it. But my question then becomes, can you do it very, very fast, very, very quickly, maybe get it very, very popular, do it online so you can, lower your costs and all that kind of stuff, put your team of contractors together, all that good stuff, right? But then maybe use some of what the competition's doing and seeing what they're charging for something like that and asking. Again, remember how we said value-based? Well, guess what? This is for men, so maybe you can come in and charge a different price. It's specific. It's a value. It's a different kind of a thing. You might be able to do that and get it very, very popular, right? So I came up with a name. I'm not going to say it here, but I came up with a name, and I went out and I bought the domain name, right? Cheap stuff, right? $8.99 a year, and I bought the .net too. So we're talking about what, 20 something bucks, and then what you're going to do, and I like to do things for less than $100. We're going to now go out there and test the product, right? We're going to go buy some product and test it. And then we're going to say, okay, what are the ingredients here and where can I get them for myself, kind of a thing. So, all right. Anyway, you want to look at, in step 3, you're going to be looking at what the competition is charging so that you can kind of get an idea of what you need to charge, right? Because, of course, to get to break even, we're trying to find out what are our, costs, right? The variable costs minus the price. We're going to be trying to find out, can we get to that gross profit area, right? And once we get our gross profit, we start doing some other things and we find out what our break even is. But one of the best ways to start off is to just look at what your competition's doing, seeing where they're at and seeing what you're adding into it. If you got, because you have all these lower expenses, remember you're working out of your home, you don't have a staff, you might have way lower costs, and you can come in and enter the marketplace at a price point that they can't match. Now, the hope, of course, is that maybe they notice you and then they kind of do what they can do. They probably feel that, hey, I can outlast you because we got more money. We can create this thing, and that's fine. Or they could say, hey, you've already done the work. You've gotten all the attention. How about us doing some kind of deal, or us buying you, or us putting money into you? Right? That becomes an opportunity. All right, so here it is. So you're asking these questions. Why they could have better vendor pricing? What is it about them that makes their pricing so, right? They could have better building, vehicles, other equipment already paid off. All these factors that you're thinking about, right? You don't know what they are paying their staff or what the benefits they are receiving. So you don't know what's going into why your customer's charging this. You just know that you're trying to not charge that high price, or you're trying to come into a different price point that you start getting attention and maybe start getting some customers for them. That makes sense? All right, good. Let's go to step 4. What is my product? What makes my product the thing, right? And what is affecting the potential pricing this? Is my stuff safer? Now, we got a lot of companies out there that use, let's say if you're in the skincare space, and they use all kind of products to, get shelf life and all that kind of stuff, but that affects your skin. And you say, hey, look, I'm going to come in with all natural. Okay, that's fine. But what is that going to cost you? And now, not only is it going to cost you to make it, but what is it going to cost you because it doesn't have the same shelf life? Do you have a system in place where you say, hey, look, I can make this stuff up as I get it. I can make it on demand. Well, if you do that, that's fine. You don't produce until somebody buys, but if you get a huge order, you heard this term, that's going to be a scale problem. In other words, that's going to be a problem of you being able to fulfill because you got all these orders. That's a good problem to have, but it also can crack your company. Be careful of that. Now, here's another one. We paid to have it tested by XYZZY, right? Consumer rating agency. All of this stuff you're saying, hey, look, this is how I know my stuff is better. This is why I can come in with this value pricing, because my stuff is better. But there's a cost associated with getting that stuff tested. All right. Are you cheaper? Think about this. All the things that go into your product, right? And when you're monetizing your life, you're always considering these things. Now, the beauty of and the leverageable moment for monetizing your life is that nobody has the DNA you do. In other words, nobody's seen what you've seen. Nobody has lived what you've lived. Nobody has thought what you've thought. That's what's going to immediately separate you and differentiate you and make you different than anybody else. But you still have to now apply some of these kind of regular business tools to now what you are presenting out there into the marketplace. All right. So you're asking these kind of questions. All right. Step 4, we're talking about what makes my product and how is it going to affect my pricing? All right. Is it sturdy? Is it custom made? Do you use collaborators? Do you specialize in a specific niche? All that kind of stuff. Now let's go to step 5. And in step 5, you're planning for the unexpected. What are all the things that could go wrong? Now, you don't want to be the negative Nelly in the company, right? But I love to have that. If you ever heard the term red team and blue team. Well, one team does one thing only, offense. And one team does one thing only, defense. And I like to have these fun things in my group is I'll literally have a team that all they do is poke holes in ideas. That's their job. I want the negative Nellies on that side. Because guess what? I'd rather have my team members doing it than the competition. And if I can't plug those holes, if I can't answer those questions, then guess what? Our product is not going to be long for the marketplace. Things to consider. Other things that you're putting in, right? You're thinking about material costs, downtime, theft. I remember when I worked in the retail space, right? That's one of the first things that we used to do every single morning is count the suits. Why? Because if somebody, rolled a suit up and rolled out of the building, that's $300 to $400 out of our potential profit margin. We have to count the suits, and that was, oh boy, gosh, I hated that every morning. You're not wide awake, and you got to count these suits. Wow. Right? And it was a big chore, but it's something that is important because theft is one of the things that can affect your price, right? And if you get too much theft, you got to raise the price. All right. Attrition, losing people. Wow. Is that a big deal? I think that's a big deal. Because if you're losing folks, guess what? Folks are not sticking around in your company. You got a cost of now bringing somebody new in and a cost of that knowledge rolling out the door. Boy, that sucks. But you see here, all these things that you now have to consider, right? You getting that? Now, I'm probably going to provide this as a downloadable for you. I'm going to provide this pricing sheet for you. So just something you can consider as you look over what it's going to take for me to start. And we're going to get into some examples here in a minute. All right. What is the minimum growth income? I love this part because oftentimes entrepreneurs very rarely pay themselves. And I look at it like, you know what, at least plug it in. If you're not going to pay yourself, maybe you're paying a teammate. So plug that price in so that you know when you do your break-even analysis, you find out when you're going to be making money. You start doing some of your, you're looking into the future. You're starting to ask yourself, okay, when am I going to make money in this business? Knowing this stuff and having yourself a salary in there, it goes a long way. Trust when I say that. It just really does go a long way to know that you're putting all this time and effort into building something, and you're going to get a return on that time. All right. So you're looking at that growth needs based on everything above the monthly. What you would want yourself, maybe you want to pay yourself $100,000 a year. Maybe you've never made $100,000 a year. And you say, hey, for all of this stuff that I'm going to be doing for this business, the time away from my family, whatever it is, I want to get paid. Well, that's fine. Put that in. All right. So now Here's something that's a caveat. Only factor a 20-day production week per month. Why do you think that is? Do you want to work 7 days a week? Well, you might want to, but guess what? Other people might not. They might want their Sundays off if you're working with team members, right? And then use a 50-week year instead of a 52-week year. But your expenses don't stop. We're talking revenue because a lot of people shut down, and guess what? They're not paying you. They're shut down. So what do? So we look at it from the standpoint of knowing and determining the length of time that I might potentially get income, and then assume that your expenses are going to keep on going. Okay? All right. So here's another one. How many hours of service per day do I need to meet my expenses? I love taking this approach. It is the hourly, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, but you don't want to have too much time before you determine whether you're on or off track. The daily, oh my gosh. I remember I used to do this and I would tell people, well, what do you want to make a year? And then they would say, okay, I'd like to make X amount of dollars a year. Oh, okay. Or if they lost their job, what did that job bring you? Give me all of it. In other words, tell me not only what you made when you got the check, but what did they also pay? Because you want to put some of those things in if you want to still enjoy those other things. Insurance, if they paid your insurance, what did that cost? What did they pay on their side? Taxes, what did they pay on their side? So you factor that in, and then you spit out, okay, divide that by every day. And in this case, you remember we talked about 20 days, 50 weeks, not 52. Then it spits out a number. Boom. These are some of the things that this is going to help you do, right? Thinking about that stuff. How many products per day do I need to manufacture to meet my expenses? It'll spit out a number for you. It'll say, okay, you need to sell 17 widgets. I remember, this is kind of a personal story, but I'll tell you. I remember when my wife had lost her job during the pandemic of 2020. And she had a certain amount that they paid, right? A pretty decent salary. And, if you added it all up, it came to about, I think it was about $280 some odd dollars a day. So I says, okay, this is what you have to make every day. And then you now have to look around, because I show her the same thing, the monetize your life system. What are you already doing? And then how we're going to monetize that, how we're going to make money from that, right? And so it came down to, what then do you need to create that you can present to people and get that every single day, just so you can meet your expenses, just so you can meet your particular goals. And this is something that people oftentimes, they don't do. And they don't do it. Why? They think it's the hard work. Well, we got the spreadsheets for all that. Let the spreadsheet do. I'm not a math genius, but I love math, right? The spreadsheet will do all that for you. And the reason I love math is simple. It doesn't lie to you. It tells you, here are your expenses. Here's what you need to do to meet those expenses. Is there any wiggle room in there? No. Right? Now, you want to get more money in your life? Reduce these expenses. You want to get more money in life? Increase your price. You want to get more money in life? Get more customers. You see, that's why the Monetize Your Life system works so well, and it works specifically to you. You don't have to worry about anybody else doing your Monetize Your Life system. No, because it's yours. And we help you design it specifically for that. All right, but it tells you, look at this. How many products do I need to sell per day to meet my expenses? How many products do I need to manufacture on hand and then sell? Key considerations. All right, now here's some example. Rent, $1,500. Electric, $250. Water, $85. So now what's happening here is that you're getting a chance to see, right? You're just kind of putting it all together. This is what it's going to cost me. This is what it's going to be a year. If it's a, heavy duty, that's a lot of insurance, right? But, if it's a heavy duty insurance situation, I don't know if you work in something that could put you in liability situation, QuickBooks, advertising, all of this stuff, right? You see what's happening. Man, we could adjust that out. But the point is that your insurance may not be the same, but it could be, depending on what kind of business that you have. If you've got, I would assume if you got a restaurant, you probably got some hefty insurance. Somebody eats something there and they get sick, they sue you. You better be paying some good insurance. So here it is. Fuel, truck stuff. If you got truck payments, supplies, tooling, right? Now, these are look at this. This is some heavy duty stuff. But if you're starting a tool and die company, you might have something like this. If you got a factory that you're going, you may have something heavy like this. So we just use some really heavy duty examples just to get some numbers in there. Subcontractors, depending on what business you have, you may be paying this much. So the real big deal here then is I got to make sure that I'm making a lot of money. Right? You look at something like this, and we've had some people that have come to us that have, they got a big thing going. And when we say, okay, break out all of your expenses, right? If we're talking with a factory or we're talking with someone in a manufacturing space, this is real stuff here. And then they say, well, this is what it's cost me. Wow. Oftentimes we go, wow, depending who we're talking to. Entrepreneurs, obviously, just starting off, obviously aren't going to have this. But if you are a small business, small to medium-sized business, SMEs as they call them, small to medium-sized enterprise, then you could very well have expenses in this range. And then we start talking about how you're going to reduce them out, okay? Now, here we go. You got, you start now putting different numbers to that, right? 1,500 times 12 months, boom. You start seeing it. Wow, wait a minute. $482,000 is going to take me. Now, these may not be your numbers, obviously, but that's what it's going to take you. But doesn't matter the number. The point is that you start seeing what is the minimum amount needed monthly to meet all my expenses. Look at this. You notice in here, though, check this out. Payroll. 5 employees at 40 hours, 25 hours, $25 an hour. Well, that could just as well be you. It could be you and some other folks. Now, you can obviously reduce all of these out to meet your specific circumstances. But you see what's happening here. When you are in the Monetize Your Life system, you are considering these things. You're putting all these things together so that you know what it's going to take you to live that life of freedom, to live the life on your terms. And this is why when I created the Monetize Your Life system is I wanted people to be able to have the freedom to live life on their terms. And that came out of, quite frankly, a series of unfortunate events that happened in my own life. Having lost people that I really cared about and having to take care of them and having to come off my job to do it. And knowing, wow, man, I have no income coming in. I now have to take care of a sick parent in this particular case. And what I need flexibility. I can't just, I need something else that I can do, right? When they're sleeping, let's say, what can I do when they're sleeping? They need constant attention, that kind of thing, right? So now if these unfortunate events are happening in your life, whether it is, during the pandemic of 2020 and it just decimated your household, whether you lost folks, now you're saying, you know what, I need to learn to do something in a different way. Whatever that why is for you, use it. And in the Monetize Your Life system, you will be able to use it because we have so many different things that you can do that then leverages what you either love to do, what's happening to you, pains, the things that are that you just are curious about. That is the leverageable moment. All right. So this may not be your situation. You may not have a company. This is the one that, John and I happened to look at, and we ended up saying, hey, look, this is a heavy duty one. Let's go ahead and start looking at this, break it down into terms, right? $482,000. And then we start saying, what's the minimum amount needed to meet all the expenses? We got that in. Now we say, hey, look, I know good and well if I mow lawns at $35 an hour, right, I would have to mow 13,000 lawns. Now, we use these kind of extreme examples just to show you something very interesting. We use these examples just to show you that, guess what? If you decide you want to mow lawns, you say, I'm going to start my own business and I got all these expenses. Well, guess what? That's 13,775 lawns. But it's 276 lawns a week. Get it? Now you start saying, who do I need to bring on my team to achieve this outcome? So you may say, I really love the outdoors. Well, guess what? You try to do 276 lawns, you might be in some trouble, right? Because that's 56 lawns a day. But if you had, remember this now, if you had your teammates, right? Look at this. You've got your teammates. Where are they? payroll 5 employees, $25 an hour. Well, that's a high price, right? But if you say, hey, I would like a primo team to go out there, but at least now you know what that's expense wise going to cost you. You know how you can leverage yourself. So now let's say if we had 5 people out there, could 5 people do 56 lawns per day? That's 10 lawns a day. Well, that means you're going to be out there making sure you come in better priced than the competition so you can have that many. You got your crews, but you notice there we had trucks and all this kind of stuff factored in. These are just some of the exercises that you're going through. Your situation could be different, very different. But at least what this does is allow you to see what is it going to take to do that. Now, what if you says, well, all right, I want to go into the products business. I don't want to go out there and mow lawns. That's fine. Let's put it in. $9.90. I like to use $9.97. But $9.99, I would need to sell 48,000 of them, not including sales tax, annually, or 4,000 items monthly, or 966 per week, 996 per week. Right? But you now start seeing, hey, wait a minute, I got information in now. I know some stuff. So you say to yourself, what is it going to take? Now, with the internet being as it is and people are just at home buying stuff, you might be able to achieve that outcome, right? Because get this, let's say the pandemic of 2020 just threw you all in a tizzy. You still have these massive expenses before you can get out of, rents and sell stuff and all that. This is what is expected of you still monthly, still yearly in terms of expenses. And you say, well, I'm going online. I see all these gurus online. I'm going to start selling online. That's fine. You create a product. You charge $9.99. It tells you what you need to do every day. It tells you what you need to do every week. At least you now have information. That's why I wanted to say we're going to use the Monetize Your Life system, but we're going to use pricing structure. We're going to use traditional business practices to determine how we're going to take whatever it is we're doing from our life and create a product from it. And what is it going to take? All right, 6% sales tax in Michigan. You see what you got to go do here. Got to make sure that you plug in what you want to have, what you need to have to cover your expenses, cover your taxes, right? Look at this, a 10% loss rate. It would be an extra. So all this stuff is factored in. You're thinking red team, blue team, offense, defense. If you do that, then what you're doing is putting yourself in a much better position to run a successful business, right? So, hey, I want to sell hamburgers, right? You got a lot of food trucks. People love those food trucks, man. I eat off of them. I see people selling barbecue on the street. I pull up. I love that stuff. But at least now you know what's needed. Hamburgers, $2.75. You need to sell 173,309 hamburgers, or 14,610. These are big numbers, but it's big only because you had these really big expenses at the top, based on you now having to do something else. Right? And this is what John and I love to do when we go into a company that has been affected by whatever. We go, okay, here's what you could be doing, but here's what you now have is your expenses, and maybe you may not want to do that thing. Maybe you don't want to sell hamburgers. But get this, what if you still are running your company, you're still running your factory, and you want to feed folks, and you say, hey, listen, I'm going to help you save money because we're going to have somebody come in every single day to feed you, right? And you make a deal with the person that's coming in for access to your folks. Think about this now. You're telling your employees, it's just a tip. You're telling employees, look, we want to save you money. We want to save you money on your lunches. We want to make sure you eat, right? And we want to make sure that because if they eat, then you know that, guess what? They're going to have enough energy to finish out the day, all that good stuff, right? So you say, okay, here's what the cost of the person I'm asking to come in. You say, hey, look, give me a percentage of that. I don't know, just one of those things that you could do. All right, now, this is what we want you to do. We want you to start putting down, look at this, go to the next page and start listing your numbers. Take this, print it out, and just put it in. Your numbers are not going to look like what we showed you at the top. But what you could do is start looking at this and saying, what is all of the things, and add some if you need to. All right, what are some of the things that are going to be cost to me? 1099 contractors, put it in other. You can continue that all the way down the line. That is how you're going to take a pricing structure, cost structure, and monetize your life. Okay, this is what we talk about on our podcast all the time. You know, when we sit down, the two business guys mastermind, when we sit down and we think about how can we help a company be better, sometimes we talk about this way. We talk about things to watch out for. We talk about opportunities that you could be taking advantage of. But one of the things when we're talking with the brand new folks that are just starting up, we give them this and we say, okay, just take a look at this. Here's some examples. Now, these are really big examples. These are big. You saw we had big numbers in there. But what they allow you to do is literally take a look at what you will need to just start thinking about the startup part. You don't have to brute strength it. You don't have to put the math all up here. You just have these things as considerations. And now we've also given you the chance to see, who am I going to find out these? How am I going to find out how to price? Well, you're going to find out how to price based on what maybe your competition's doing. At least you see if they're selling something for $49, then you better not come in unless you got a massive value proposition and selling it for $89. You might want to, your expenses might tell you to do so, but you got to take a look at your competition. And if your customers are saying, hey, I am used to spending $49, I'm not spending $89 on your stuff. I don't know you. They don't know you, like you, trust you. That they don't know any of this stuff unless you're coming in with a massive amount of value that they can immediately see, and something that you're selling makes them feel a certain way, right? You're not going to get that price. But at least now you have the opportunity to see what it's going to take to get going. Whether you are in, like I say, the Monetize Your Life system that I run, or whether you are just trying to think about how you need to begin your thing or restructure your thing. Consider these things, and I tell you, you'll be a whole lot further ahead than a lot of people. I hope you got some value from this. If, listen, if you've seen this on YouTube and you get some good value for it, subscribe to the channel. I send out stuff like this all the time. I know when I'm working with my, other business guy masterminding on stuff, we get into this a lot. But if you see this, understand it's one of the things that can help you run your business better, start it up better than all the rest, and give yourself just an unfair advantage, when you are presenting your stuff and other people haven't considered it. All right. Hey, we'll talk to you next time, and I hope you've enjoyed what I've been able to show you right here.